Hello guys, and welcome to a new Still Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you AmberT versus Protosszocker in the third round lower bracket of the third Asia Pacific tournament. Today we're going to be seeing Sainte-Mère-Église Duellists, and on the allied side today we have AmberT with the Guards Armoured, and on the Axis side the 9th Panzer led by Protosszocker. So this is an interesting matchup. I believe we've seen it before, especially with AmberT at the helm of the Guards Armoured. He defeated Nicholas Frick's 9th Panzer previously with quite a convincing victory. He played it very patiently, but in the end, broke through pretty hard and sealed the deal. So we'll have to see if he can do that again in this one, or maybe he'll play it a little bit more differently, maybe a bit more aggressive, now that he's got his hands on the division once again. But the great thing about the Guards Armoured in general is they are quite well rounded. Yes, they lack veterancy across the board, but they have decent infantry, or at least a decent amount of infantry. They have decent AT guns moving into the later phases, like with 17 pounders and such. You've got relatively good tanks, especially tanks that match up well to some of the lighter units that the Germans can bring. And you also have relatively good artillery and air force. So basically a really well-rounded division. And I think that's probably why AmberT is quite happy to use them in this tournament, because something I learned recently is that the maps are random. So they don't know what they're going to get going into the maps, and therefore Guards Armoured seems like a good choice. On the side of Protosszocker, the 9th Panzer, we'll have to see how he does in this one. Unfortunately, previously we did see a surrender that was a bit premature, but either way, we'll have to wait and see how he can do in this game. Now, bear in mind that all of the games were played in the same day, so previous defeats do affect the mindset of the next games, and hopefully we won't see that come into play too much in this one, but you never know. So let's have a look at some of these troops going down. We'll have a look at AmberT. He's putting multiple rifles into the town with a command infantry there, and looks like motorized rifles. There's also going to be a Stuart 6 heading in. On the bottom side, it's going to be recon with an AT gun. That Willys MG will be able to hold the front line forwards, hopefully. And on the top side, it does look like a Cromwell 7 is going to be brought in, which is a nice choice, accompanied by this Humber Mark III as well. I like that combination a lot. Over on the side of Protosszocker, it's going to be Panzergrenz for the top with an AT gun and command infantry. We've got Panzergrenz for the mid. There's actually 3 units there, accompanied by command infantry. Then we have a Panzer II Lux with a Marder III and a Flampanzer. This Flampanzer has the potential to do a lot of work at the start of the game, especially against the Guards Armoured, since the Guards Armoured use Piats and they are unreliable at best. So this map is one that we haven't seen in a little while, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Of course, you just got the town in the mid here, and you've got open ground on the bottom side, and then sort of an interesting mid-range engagement on the top side. And it generally is a pretty well-balanced map, in a sense that the 50-50 generally stays in the same place, and it's quite easy to realise where the 50-50 is as the game goes on, because it follows the road the whole way down. So you can tell if you're going to get a lead or not, which is actually quite nice information to have on a map. So I think that's why players do like this map quite a lot sometimes. But of course, with the maps being random, that wasn't really a factor in this case. So Cromwell 7 and Humber Mark III, will they be able to deal with this AT weapon in time? That is the big question up here. Honestly, the Cromwell 7 can just face tank a Pak-38, but the Humber Mark III maybe not so much. So we'll have to wait and see if that comes about, but the Humber Mark III might be able to get out of line of sight, might not have to. Humber Mark III and Cromwell 7 firing at the same time will pin that down relatively quickly. So that's what AmberT is going to be looking to do, and if he can kill that AT gun, it's going to make things very easy for him to continue the push on that top side. There is a little bit of a salient on the top side of Sainte-Mère, with the Panzergrenz holding their position up there, but no engagements in the town. Both players staying quite conservative at the start, and I kind of find that a bit odd, especially with a Flampanzer but that can definitely do a lot of work. So you can see even the motorized rifle leader in this case does not have a Piat. He has to rely on this motorized rifles. Yes, the Stuart 6 is here, but the Flandpanzer could still pin down a lot of infantry and make it surrender, allowing his Panzergrenadiers to get an advantage in the town. And one bad thing is these rifles are actually better at the 100-meter range engagement than Panzergrenadiers. But Flandpanzer getting involved here is what I like to see. We did see the Humber Mark III go down to the Pak 38 here. Cromwell 7 failing to do any damage in return. On the bottom side, Panzergrenadiers are making a little bit of ground. Nothing really to stop them here at the moment, since it's just a unit of recon. The Duellists MMG can engage them from out of range of their MG42s, but that's going to have to be microed properly, otherwise that will die since it's unarmoured. So in the town here, Flandpanzer trying to do its best. We'll be able to do quite a lot of damage, I think, to these rifles. Yep, those rifles forced to abandon that house and therefore mown down in the open by the machine guns. But the Stuart 6 now rolling up might be able to change things. However, doesn't want to get in range of the Panzergrenadiers. And actually, one thing that is the case is this Flandpanzer could surrender the Stuart 6 if it gets close enough, because the Stuart 6 will refuse to sit still on flames. So you can really take advantage of that, and AmberT is going to have to be very careful that he doesn't get that surrendered. So Cromwell 6 providing ample fire support for the rifles right now. There is a Panzer II Lux heading up that way, but without something to penetrate this Cromwell 7, that's going to have a hard time. Yes, it's fantastic for cleaning up the infantry. It's not so good against this Cromwell 7. Yes, Armada 3 will work a little bit better, but he's got to find the 1,200 meter range to really make that work. So in the town, engagement continues. Stuart 6 was pulled back. Another one was brought in. I think AmberT was a little bit wary of that engagement, was worried that his Stuart 6 might be surrendered, and therefore brought in another one preemptively, which is definitely a good choice. This Flandpanzer definitely helping Protosszocker stabilize in the town so far. Cromwell 7 is getting shots onto the Pak 38. You can see it can pretty much just face tank the shots from that Pak 38, and that is the beauty of this Cromwell 7 in Phase A. A lot like the Ram, but better than the Ram, the Cromwell 7 has HE on its main gun and 2 machine guns, whereas the Ram I think only has 1 machine gun and no HE on its main gun. So although it will bounce AT guns all day, it can't really fire back, but that's the Cromwell 7 definitely can. As he gets closer, that is a little bit risky, because the Pak 38 will then achieve enough penetration to get through the front arm of the Cromwell. But with the Marder 3 on the way here, Protosszocker is hoping that that will deal with that Cromwell 7 that is putting a lot of pressure on the map up there. The Marder 3 going to be finding a shot through the tree line here. But with the Panzergrenadiers and Panzergrenadier falling back, it's not going to be long until this Cromwell 7 is actually up in the face of the Marder 3, and that's not an ideal place for Protosszoker's Marder 3 to be. He wants to keep that at distance if he can, because at close range this Cromwell 7 can pin a Marder 3 very quickly and cause it to become inaccurate. So no more probing on the bottom side with the Panzergrenadiers here. This Marder 3 hasn't even seen play, not even in range of this Panzergrenadier, so it'd be good to see that sort of jump over there, maybe have the Panzergrenadiers move forwards and probe this bottom side, especially considering there's so much emphasis on this top side right now. But of course, you will want to focus where the action is, and in this case the Cromwell 7 does finally kill the Pak 38. New Pak 38 has arrived. That one might be able to deal with this Stuart. Panzer II Lux is going to easily help pin down a lot of the infantry that comes into these tree lines. But that's not going to stop the infantry from pushing forwards for now, at least. AmberT charging his rifles onwards. Probably would very much like to take care of this Panzergrenadier if he can. So AT gun engaging the M5 half track. That's going to let the Stuart 6 get out of there. Looks like the rifles, though, they went down. The Panzergrenadier is still alive, using smoke to keep its flanks covered. I really, really like that, but a +1 in favour of AmberT currently. So command infantry does go down. That's going to get rid of some of the veterancy on these Panzer II Looks. AmberT's going to have to be a little bit careful engaging these Panzer II Looks at close range, as they can get the penetration. How close would they need to be? Let's work that out. They'd probably need to be within like 300-meter range, right, to have some sort of penetration against the front armor of the Cromwell 7. But if they're just moving and keeping themselves mobile, they might be able to find side shots, and that would be great. Pak 38 does come through the tree line here, gets absolutely smashed by the MGs, and the motorized rifle actually hit a Piat shot. So fantastic job by the motorized rifles there, paying themselves off a treat, and that's what you like to see from a Piat. So another AT gun on the way, and it's interesting that AmberT is choosing to reinforce his Cromwell 7 with these 6-pounders. I actually really like the choice. He's had infantry in these tree lines, and that's basically allowed him to identify that there's not enemy infantry in those tree lines, and therefore these 6-pounders are pretty safe to push around through these tree lines and therefore take out the targets that would otherwise be a threat to the Cromwell 7. So this 6-pounder is probably looking for the shot onto the Panzer II Looks right now. It's probably going to hit its first shot, otherwise it will get killed. But the Marder 3 also going to be under threat there if it comes out in the open. Now on this bottom side, the Panzergren is pushing up, and I like the look of that. The Panzergrenadier is now encompassing the Marder 3 in its command radius. And these Panzergrens have pushed back this 6-pounder. And now we see a massive force of Panzer II Looks charging down this side of the map. Protosszocker really looking to take advantage of this 6-pounder being the only AT defense on the bottom side. Good kill onto a half-track there in the town. Protosszocker putting on some pressure, but his Panzergren's getting very low on men. 6-pounder did get the weapon jam onto the Panzer II Looks, but found itself pinned by the Panzergrens. Cromwell 7, I thought it had died, but just fell back for now. These Panzergrens, will they find a Panzerschreck shot? No, they will not. However, they are revealing their position by this bubble. But the Marder 2, or Marder 3, sorry, showing us how it's done with the kill onto the Stuart 6 behind the town. So these Panzer II Looks, I love this aggressive play from Protosszocker. He's really found the weakness in AmberT's defense, and now it's time to exploit it. So killing off this 6-pounder is what he wants to do. But he should really take these guys off attack moves and just keep them rolling. Because they could just run through this defense so quickly. Now, AmberT has decided to opt for a Stuart 6 to hold this back, but in the face of 5 Panzer IIs and a Marder 3, could get difficult, that's for sure. Oh, crew wounded onto that Befehl Panzer II there by the 6-pounder. I really love the positioning of these AT guns. It's beautiful from AmberT. And that's going to stop the reinforcements coming in and affecting this top side of the map. So AmberT finding himself ground, but Protosszocker pushing the +1 currently. Second Stuart 6 on the way. Panzer II Looks will struggle to penetrate Stuart 6s from range, but this Panzer II Looks sneaking up close may cause some issues. Yep, Stuart 6, they're going to have to fall back. So Panzergren's going to go down there. Lack of Panzergrens in the town at the moment, but with the Flandpanzer in the way, there isn't much room for AmberT either, as a lot of his rifles have lost men. We can see one of the Panzer II Looks going down here. There is currently 4 left. I'm just surprised how spread out they are. This one actually got internal fragmented by the looks of things, lost its ammunition. But yeah, having the other 3 so spread out at the moment, I feel like is a pretty big mistake. He's trying to use the Marder 3 to clean up the Stuarts, and I like that a lot. But yeah, one thing I've seen before is, I think it was on Montormel, somebody was using Honey Stuarts with the 15th Infantry Scots to make a decent push, and they just ended up spreading out the Honeys when they just pushed through, and therefore they got picked off one by one, and he lost the advantage. And I feel like that's what's happening here. We had 5 Panzer IIs rolling down that road with the Marder 3. There's no way that AmberT should be allowed to recover from that kind of penetration in his front line. But we have moved into Phase B, so there is now a Sherman 5 rolling up here. Rifles have arrived to create a meat shield. And AmberT's reaction has actually been relatively good. Stuart 6s deal with Panzer IIs quite well inherently, but I was hoping that the numbers that Protosszocker had would be able to maybe overwhelm the Stuarts. Again, if you just keep them on the move as you charge towards the Stuarts, you get into range eventually, and you're just going to pop them at close range. But AmberT here has managed to break all the way through with the help of his AT guns. The Marder 3 has been pinned and surrendered. So a lot of ground being gained by AmberT and his low strength squads. Pack 40 has something to say about that though. It's going to smash the Cromwell 7 with one shot. I'm sure that's going to soon follow that M5 half track there. And that's a pretty big blow actually to AmberT's attack. But with the support of these 2 6-pounders, there's not going to really be much that Protosszocker can do with armor for the time being on this top side. He's going to need some arty or something there to get the job done. Now on this bottom side, the double Stuart Sherman 5 combo, that is pretty good for dealing with the forces that he's up against. There's also a Sherman 5 coming up to attack from the town area. And I really like the sort of 2-prong idea that he has, attacking both from this side and from this side at the same time. Now the Feldpanzer 4 is 2-star coming down the road here. We'll be able to clean up a lot of these half tracks very quickly. Might also be able to kill this Stuart 6. We can see AmberT has actually picked up and now just unloaded again the 6-pounder. Maybe wanted to move that forwards, but with the Panzer 4 on its way, is going to think otherwise. +1 now back in favour of AmberT. Sherman 5 going to clean up another of the Panzer 2s. It looks like another one fell as well to the Stuart 6s and the Sherman 5 here. That's going to get killed off, and now it's just one Feldpanzer 2 and a Marder 3 holding this line. Now we can see the 25-pounder. That's going to be trying to harass and pin down the Pack 40 of Protosszocker. And Protosszocker needs to do the same to AmberT at this point. Bring in some arty, start pinning down these 6-pounders, so that this Feldpanzer 4 can really do a lot of work with some supporting Panzergrenz. Over here we can see another of the Panzer 2s falling. That's going to take away veterancy from the Marder 3. And with the Marder 3 being engaged by the Sherman 5, it looks like AmberT is trying to get into line of sight here, but is struggling to do so. Internal fragment onto one of his Sherman 5s. Just needs to break the line of sight. Track wheel damaged is not good at all. Just needs to use that tree line. There we go. Gets himself into cover. Stuart 6 comes in at close range. Is going to do the job. And that's pretty much blown Protossocker's push out of the water. Now, we'll have to wait and see if Protosszocker can sort of return the favour on the top side, bring things back to the 50-50, because he does have the Pack 40 in a very nice position, and it's no longer pinned. The 25-pounder has kind of been hitting the wrong point for a little while now, and it's allowed the Pack 40 to recover. That Pack 40 could clean up these 6-pounders actually if it gets line of sight, but there is a lack of recon on the top side, at least for now. A lack of recon on the bottom as well, especially in the open ground. AmberT has some on the very bottom side, he also has some on the very top. He may also be lacking some for the 6-pounder, but the Feldpanzer 4 here is going to find and start destroying this 6-pounder crew. The 17-pounder now opening up. That is pretty scary. The high velocity of those 17-pounder rounds is just really, really scary. It gives you no time to get out of the way of them. Once they fire, you're generally dead. But in that case, 2 shots, 2 misses. Panzer 4 gets out alive. Panzer 4J has come in on this bottom side, going to be engaging the Sherman 5 here. Stuart 6 did go down, but there is going to be a Firefly 5 on call. and that should be able to deal with the Panzer IV quite nicely if the Sherman 5 doesn't do it first. But with a shooter wounded, that may take its time. 6-pounder eventually going down. It's nice to see Protosszocker bringing in that mortar to allow his tanks to have a bit more flexibility, especially with these Panzergrens, and these are actually Pioneers. So they're going to clean up the motorized rifles, get rid of any AT infantry, and give Protosszocker a chance to push back on that top side. So both players here making the right choices in units right now. Maybe a bit delayed on the side of Protosszocker, but in the end he got there, and now it's going to be the 17-pounder revealed and shot at by this Pak 40. Pushing forward this Pak 40 more aggressively towards these two AT guns would be a really good idea right now for Protosszocker, because the good thing about German AT is it does have the HE value, whereas the 17-pounders and 6-pounders do not. Back in the beta, I believe the 17-pounders used to have HE, but it was a bit OP, so they removed it. I think it was also for historically accurate reasons as well. The 17-pounder never really used a proper HE round. Something like that, anyway. Don't quote me on that. Either way, Sherman 5 kind of backed off from the engagement with the Panzer IV-J, which after the shooter wounded is no surprise. We do see now the Firefly 5C getting in range though, and that is going to be engaging the Panzer IV-J. Not going to be long until that Panzer IV-J goes down. Now that Panzer IV-J actually is a really good choice for this kind of engagement, because one thing that the Panzer IV-J lacks compared to the Panzer IV-H is aim time. So at close range, Panzer IV-J really doesn't work very well. But when you're engaging at the maximum 1000 meter range, they can really take the fight to Shermans quite nicely. And in this case it was, but with the assistance of a Firefly 5C, it didn't really stand a chance. Panzergrens are now being forced back. Befehl Panzer IV is on the way. Panzer II looks here, did get internal fragmented and is still falling back. That would like to find some supply at some point. Pioneers have managed to surround these rifles and are going to continue to try and make ground into these buildings, but if the rifles beat them to it, that could be pretty sour. Looks like they possibly might pin down the Pioneers in time, but all they need to do is really just get into those buildings and they'll be okay. On this bottom side, Sherman 5, Stuart 6 and Firefly now coming up against Pak 40 from Protosszocker. I like the reliance on Pak 40s at this point, because the 25-pounder has been less than reliable, that's for sure. But 55% in favour of AmberT, +1. Now we're moving on to Firefly territory. Things are getting interesting. Phase C in 45 seconds. Tigers will be brought in, I hope, from Protosszocker, because those will really help him clean up these Fireflies, hopefully, and allow him to make some ground back. Meanwhile in the town, it looks like the Flampanzer is going to be assisted by the Befehl Panzer IV, and since there's no AT infantry here, Protosszocker could find a lot of ground in this town, which would be one good way to really take the fight to AmberT right now, because he needs to find a hole in the defense somewhere, since the bottom one's been filled by two Sherman 5s, a Stuart 6 and a Firefly, and on the top side there's a Sherman 5 and a 17-pounder. So both of the more open areas are covered pretty well by AmberT right now, but in the town his infantry is going to suffer against the Pioneers and Flampanzer of Protosszocker. So that's something that Protosszocker, I hope, will take advantage of. There is a Firefly heading up towards the mid actually, and that's going to be going just to the top side of the town. It might be something that the Panzer IV has to worry about in the future. But over here, well, these Pioneers are currently relatively unsupported, are going to get a grenade off in the face of those rifles and blow them up. But with the Sherman 5 engaging with both its 50 cals and 30 cals, it does make things very difficult indeed. Double mortar now behind the town. One of them is going to be opening up onto those rifles, but a bit inaccurate at the moment. In terms of sheer availability, you can see that the Guards Armoured is really coming on strong right now. +2 in the pocket of AmberT. Sherman 5 versus Panzer IV-J. Who will win? Now this Panzer IV-J, with its low aim time, again, doesn't particularly matter at this sort of range. Just needs to find a couple shots on target. We'll find a kill. Same deal for the Sherman 5. It's a relatively even matchup there at range, at least. At close range, Sherman 5 will aim so much quicker and therefore be 100 times more likely to penetrate and just get the kill before the Panzer 4 does, at least. Now the Panzer 4J on the way. But these Pak 40s, they have some work to do. They are going to be engaging the rifles in the open, but there is going to be a need for infantry availability down here to get the job done. And honestly, with the amount of forces that Protosszoker's put into this town right now, he could actually be very low on infantry availability across the board. And the overwhelming amounts of rifles that AmberT can bring in could start to really be an issue, because these rifles are just wandering across the open and taking ground very easily. Sherman 5 takes care of a Panzer 2. 5 units of rifles now he has to clean up. That's a lot of work for this Flampanzer to do, especially in the face of a Sherman 5. Pak 40. That's going to be engaging some rifles there. This Panzer 4J. Going to be trying to take out that 6-pounder. Mortars on the case as well. Those mortars just seem really inaccurate for some reason. Maybe if you can get 2 on target it might help out, but yeah, getting some veterancy here might be a good idea. Just to help those be a bit more successful. Flampanzer really going hard now. I think AmberT is just looking for the line of sight onto that Flampanzer here. And we'll find it. Briefly, at least. Protosszocker being very careful with how he engages there, and I like that a lot. But still a +2 in favour of AmberT, and he really just needs to get rid of these rifles that have pushed him back so far. And the lack of recon down here is really hurting him, because if he just had a speed troop or something in this area, he would have spotted those infantry coming across the open, being able to smash them with the Panzer IVs, but instead he's going to have to be rather cautious pushing back because he has no idea what's here. Now Sherman 5 is going to be smashing some Panzergrens back on the top side, and it seems like AmberT has continued his previous push up here. But yeah, if we jump to Protosszoker's perspective, a real lack of information across the map. On AmberT's side, it's not so bad. However, he could probably use some more recon down on this bottom side just to keep an eye on the open areas, and same deal here, just a little bit further in front of him so he can see the units coming in and reinforcing down the road. Now he does eventually find the 25-pounder kill there onto the Pak 40, and the Sherman 5 does manage to, actually I think that was a 17-pounder, picks off one of the mortar carriers. So a couple of very good kills there. Typhoon AT, 2-star veterancy, really accurate rockets there. Not quite managing to do the job onto the Panzer IV, but a nice try. Now just weakening and killing off units slowly but surely is the best way for AmberT to just keep his advantage that he currently has. The amount of firepower that AmberT has on the field right now is astounding, and Protosszoker is really struggling to deal with it. He's really going to have to rely on this Tiger, and it is on the way, but getting that into a decent position at this point could be very difficult, especially in the face of a 17-pounder that he's going to have trouble mortaring, and also a couple Fireflies on the field at the moment. So 17-pounder, that's going to be getting shots off into the face of this Tiger. That's not what he needs right now. 17-pounder might find the kill here. It's had plenty of shots. It's missed 3 so far. Can it find the 4th shot on target? It can. Weapon jam for the Tiger E. That's going to definitely put a dent in Protosszoker's plan to get this game back. He's just invested a lot of points into that Tiger, and although he did manage to kill off the 17-pounder in response, the weapon jam is going to be difficult to deal with, and this Opel Blitz munition is going to have to rush back to fix that up ASAP. So Pioneers pushing forwards here. Looks like these ones might bump into the Ireki at close range. They're going to get blown up by a grenade. Panzer IV going to be able to clean up these rifles, and it's good that Protosszoker has identified the defenses on this bottom side that were taking a lot of ground off him were relatively weak, so he's managed to push it back to a +1. But with 13 minutes and 40 seconds left on the clock, is there enough time for Protosszocker to come back? In this position at the moment, I would say no. The Firefly has now just killed off the Panzer IV here, and this Tiger is more vulnerable than ever. It has no weapon to fire back at the Firefly. The Firefly's probably got another shot on target before that gets out of range, and if he can maybe fall it back or get a D-track or something, then he might get the job done. But the 251-2 coming in with the smoke, I like that. Just to try and defend that Tiger E whilst he tries to get it repaired. So he kept the Tiger alive, but infantry going down on the top side. These guys will die shortly as well. And that's going to get rid of the tiny salient there, push things back to a +2 in favour of AmberT. We have more infantry arriving in this town, but the overwhelming amount of rifles has really held back this push, and assisted by the Sherman 5 has stopped the Flampanzer from just breaking the whole way through. So really good use of combined forces here by AmberT to solidify his defense in the middle. He's not trying to be over aggressive there, allowing Protosszocker to sort of push on him and then push him back, kind of like a bouncy wall, like a bouncy castle. There you go. That's a fun little thought. Sherman, or the 25 pounder and the Sexton, going to be trying to take out this Pack 40 up here. But it's good that Protosszocker managed to take back the bottom side of the map. Now he just has to do the same on the top side and then push through with an advantage. And the main way that he can do it at this point is Tigers. So he's now got both of the Tigers on the field. If he gets some command with those, maybe this Befehl Panzer IV, he might be able to be very aggressive on the more open parts of the map, especially down the bottom where he's just gained back more, some ground. That would be the logical place to push right now, since on the top side these tree lines make it real difficult to spot AT weapons. But the Sherman 5 there going to take out the Flampanzer in the town. Did manage to get the track wheel destroyer onto the Panzer IV, so now has a lot of time to get the kill there, and that's what he's going to be looking to do. Alongside these rifles, another Sherman 5, and all these vehicles are just slowly but surely being taken out, and Protosszocker thinks better of fighting this one out. And after 28 minutes and 45 seconds, AmberT is going to take the victory, knocking Protosszocker out of the tournament. So, pretty explosive stuff. 1,910 kills to 1,460 losses for AmberT. And of course vice versa for Protosszocker. It's going to be interesting to see how AmberT takes the rest of this tournament, because I feel like he may be off his game a little bit. It just seemed a bit like it was good play, don't get me wrong, but I think we've seen better. But still, well played indeed. Is going to find himself in the next round to face off against Tosh. So we'll have to see how he does, and if he can bring it back to one of the finals games. Let's jump into the kills and have a look at what went down here. So the Cromwell 7 face tanked and killed off a couple of Pack 38s. That's what I like to see. Motorized rifles actually killed off the Panzer II Lux and the Marder 3. I think that was the surrender was caused by a Piat on that top side. Then we have the 6-pounder taking out a Panzer II there. The Sherman 5 cleaned house with the Panzer IIs on the bottom side with the Stuart 6. When that big push came through from Protosszocker, I don't think it was solidified very well. I really liked the idea, just sort of saving and rushing at him with all those Panzer IIs was really good, but it just kind of fell flat when they got spread out and picked off, and that was just unfortunate. Maybe could have dealt with it a little bit better, but at the end of the day there's only so much you can do. Stuart 6 takes out the Marder 3 there as well at close range. Then it came down to the longer range engagements with the Firefly helping out with that Panzer IV-J that was beating on the Sherman. Then Sherman on the top side kills a Panzer IV-J, 6-pounder takes out a Panzer IV-J. And yeah, one thing that was really good was the 6-pounder play on the top side when he brought them in to reinforce his Cromwell 7. That was really, really good, and solidified his push, unlike Protosszocker in the bottom side. In terms of losses, Pack 38 killed off that Humber Mark III relatively early on, but the early game for Protosszocker was pretty hard until this Pack 40 arrived and turned things around against that Cromwell 7. Befell Panzer IV, I think that was in the town, took out multiple rifles in the Stuart 6. Panzer IV took out the Stuart 6 there and a Willys MG, but these Panzer IV-Js really struggled to pay themselves off in this game, and that was a big problem indeed. One of these half-tracks did manage to take out a 6-pounder and a 17-pounder, which is nice. But yeah, just across the board, units struggling. Like, these are not decent kill lists for Panzers, or for Panzer IVs at least. And that is basically the story of the game. Protosszoker's kills were not as cost efficient as AmberT's, and AmberT solidified his push after he broke through. So those are the main differences here, and that's pretty much all that was in it. Protosszocker, I think, had a chance with the Tiger, but letting it get weapon jammed really put that on hold for too long, as it left him with probably not enough time to bring it back, even if he tried, especially with AmberT hitting the 1,726 points there. So yeah, good game. I actually really enjoyed watching this one. It was a far cry from some of the other shorter games that we've seen recently. So yeah, good competitive game. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.